Russia withdraw troops from Kharkiv after weeks of heavy bombardment. Russian troops are withdrawing from Kharkiv after weeks of heavy bombardment, the Ukrainian military says, with the mayor saying the battle for the city has been won. Ukraine's general staff said the Russians were pulling back from Kharkiv, the nation's second largest city in the northeast, and focusing on guarding supply routes while launching mortar, artillery, and airstrikes in the eastern Donetsk region in order to deplete Ukrainian forces and destroy fortifications. Kharkiv Mayor Ihor Terekov said Russian forces had moved back towards the border, allowing Ukrainian forces to retake 6 towns and villages in the past 24 hours. There was no shelling in the city for the last 5 days. He told the BBC there was only one attempt from Russians to hit the city with a missile rocket near Kharkiv airport, but the missile was eliminated by Ukrainian air defense. Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov said Ukraine was entering a new long-term phase of the war. The Washington-based Institute for the Study of War said the Russian military had likely decided to withdraw fully from its positions around Kharkiv city in the face of Ukrainian counteroffensive and the limited availability of reinforcements. Ukrainian forces prevented Russian troops from encircling, let alone seizing, Kharkiv, and then expelled them from around the city, as they did to Russian forces attempting to seize Kiev. The assessment added, as the country's top prosecutor put a Russian soldier on trial for war crimes, the first of dozens that could face charges. President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukrainians were doing their maximum to drive out the invaders and that the outcome of the war would depend on support from Europe and other allies. Russia's offensive in the Donbass, Ukraine's eastern industrial heartland, appeared to be turning into a village-by-village, back-and-forth slog with no major breakthroughs on either side. After failing to capture Kiev, Ukraine's capital, the Russian military decided to concentrate on the Donbass, but its troops have struggled to gain ground. Mr. Zelensky said Ukraine's forces made progress, retaking 6 Ukrainian towns or villages in the past day. Western officials said Ukraine had driven Russian forces back around Kharkiv, which was a key target for Moscow's troops. The Russians really haven't made much in the way of tactical gains recently, one Western official said, describing the war's front line as oscillating. The Ukrainians continue to launch counterattacks, particularly around Kherson and Kharkiv. We expect this to settle into a long and attritional battle, the official said. Complex talks are underway to evacuate a large number of wounded soldiers from a besieged steelworks in the strategic southeastern port of Mariupol, in return for the release of Russian prisoners of war, Ukraine's president said. Mariupol, which has seen the heaviest fighting in nearly 3 months of the war, is now in Russian hands, but hundreds of Ukrainian defenders are still holding out at the Azovstal steelworks, despite weeks of heavy Russian bombardment. In a late-night speech, Mr. Zelensky addressed the plight of people trapped at the Azovstal site. Russia, which initially insisted the defenders in the sprawling Soviet-era bunkers beneath the steelworks give themselves up, has said little publicly about the talks. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk told local TV on Saturday that efforts were now focused on evacuating about 60 people, comprising the most seriously wounded as well as medical personnel. Many of those still in the plant are members of the Azov Regiment. Deputy Commander Svestolov Palimar said his forces would continue to resist as long as they could. Our enemy, supported by planes and artillery, continue their assault on our positions, but we continue to repel them, he told an online forum on Friday. Meanwhile, the group of 7 leading economies warned on Saturday that the war in Ukraine was stoking a global food and energy crisis that was threatening poor countries. It said urgent measures were needed to unblock stores of grain that Russia was preventing from leaving Ukraine. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, who hosted a meeting of top G7 diplomats, said the war had become a global crisis. Ms. Baerbock said up to 50 million people, particularly in Africa and the Middle East, would face hunger in the coming months unless ways were found to release Ukrainian grain, which accounts for a sizable share of the worldwide supply. In statements released at the end of the 3-day meeting on Germany's Baltic Sea coast, the G7 pledged to provide further humanitarian aid to the most vulnerable.